welcome to episode 5 of my Warhammer Imperium review series, in which we'll be reading issue 5 in a move that surprises no one. Oh, I feel good saying that. Issue 5 comes with a Primaris captain, so I'm just going to open that and get that out. Sorry, I have a dog whining under the table. Let's check this guy out. This guy is pretty badass looking. I think that's a plasma pistol in his hand. Yep, that's a plasma pistol he's wielding. The heads on these guys are looking better and better. The detail's pretty awesome compared to some of the older guys. We've got a lot of bits and pieces, including the iron halo, which instead of being something that's marked on your arm or on your knee as in older models, is actually a halo that goes over his head when you build the model. We've got a nice little sword there, a little stumpy, but then again a lot of the swords are. It's not as stumpy as the old captain's swords were. Obviously they're a little stumpy just so that when they make the chapter masters and all the big guys, that they haven't got ridiculous well, the swords can be nice and big without literally toppling the model. Yeah, we've got a fantastic sheath. You've got a nice empty pistol holder, which are touches I like. You didn't used to get them with the old ones. The quality of the model is fantastic, and we are looking at, where's the date? 2021. So this was sculpted this year. It's a brand new sculpt, or at least a very new sculpt. And we've got a lot of detail and a lot of bits and pieces in it. Yeah, it has obviously the required tactical rock to stand on, and yeah, a nice, cool, single-looking model. I haven't had a chance to actually look up the price on this one. It's been a hectic couple of days, but your single models like this vary from £18 to £30 depending on how they're packaged. So if you want a Primaris captain, this is a fantastic little model to have. If you don't, what's wrong with you? You should have Primaris captains and Marines, nothing but Primaris captains and lieutenants, just Primaris captains, all the time, all the way. You don't need any other models, or at least it does appear that that's what GW's sculpting department seems to think at the moment. There are a lot of character models for Primaris. I mean, obviously we needed to catch up because there's so many cool character models and so much cool character stuff for Firstborn Sons, but the amount of Primaris models for this is absurd. On the plus side, the head is removable. Well, the head and the shoulder pad are separate. So if, like me, you bought some of the extras so you can space wolf your stuff up a bit, that's actually going to be a fairly easy move. So that's pretty good. Let's dive into the magazine. Oh, what's this? Oh, you've got one of these little fold-outs. I do like these little fold-outs. They're one of the bits of the magazines that last the longest. With the rules, and well, with the painting in the building, they only lasts until you've built them and then painted them. The rules, as I said in the previous situations, they only lasted shortly after, the rules were junked, unfortunately, shortly after the end run of the magazines, because the magazines were replaced. The rules in the magazines were replaced by another edition. Dogs, enough. Steve. So these bits are pretty cool. They're pure lore, and lore lasts pretty much forever. Even when it's replaced, it still can be considered canon, because a lot of the replacement stuff changes. Okay, let's dive straight in. We've got page 1, signed by our very own chapter master Ian. Gives you a little explanation and a load of bump and stuff like this. It is worth keeping at least one copy of page 1, because if you have any if you get any missing magazines, you can You can find the addresses to get back orders just here in the magazine. Legendarily, they're not the best at getting back orders to you. Maybe they've improved, but at this point in time, you want to get it as it comes out. If your local shop doesn't have it, trying somewhere else and just trying other shops until you get it is a more effective strategy than trying to get back orders, or at least it was in previous editions. Next, we've got a beautiful description of our Primaris commander with his awesome short undercut. I do like the more extreme haircuts. If you look at a lot of the military and a lot of the warriors throughout the centuries, they have gone for more extreme, more badass looking haircuts. I think it kind of works. Oh, it's not an iron halo, it's an Imperial Laurel. The Imperial Laurels are awarded for an act of valor that led to a victory for the chapter, so that's pretty cool. Not quite the Iron Halos, but in a similar standard to the Iron Halo. Must be annoying to get through low ceiling corridors and the like. It would be sparks across the top. You've got what's described as a master crafted power sword. You've got service studs. Each stud represents either 10, 50 or 100 years service to the chapter, which is a bit confusing because you can't see what's on the studs. They've got, looking at this picture, you've got skulls or crux terminatus or other symbols. I'm assuming those would let you know. If you want to paint a skull in that tiny detail, by all means. So this guy's either been serving the chapter for 20 years, 100 years, or 200 years. It's anyone's guess. They used to mean, the previous iterations they've been given different timelines. They used to mean 20 years at one point. But yeah, it's been changed because, well, they put different amounts of studs on different models. If they'd given you a colour scheme, that might have made it more interesting or more discernible, but as it is, they're just studs. It is worth noting that a Space Marine who's been actually serving the chapter in combat for 20 years could gain a lot of stuff in a short period of time. 20 years might only be a fraction of a Space Marine's life, but it is also a lot of time in actual time. Yeah, 20 service of 20 years is plenty of time to achieve a ton of valor and medals and things like that. You know, charging a machine gun nest doesn't take any longer for a Space Marine than it does for a Gurkha. And Gurkhas have won Iron Crosses and things like that for doing those things. So, in case there's anybody American who's wondering what Gurkhas are, they're like, yeah, not very big people from Asia that joined the British Army, and they are utterly psychotic. I mean, you wouldn't believe. They make Space Marines look a bit lame. My uncle served with the Gurkhas for a while. Well, not served Gurkhas. Served near, near where the Gurkhas were serving, and he went for a drink in one of their bars and just saw them downing pints of whiskey and shit like that. It's absurd. My uncle was my sensei. Might have been my sensei. Yeah. Anyway, pretty much anyone who served with the Gurkhas, they're like somebody made Space Marines only in a smaller package and a bit more aggressive. Anyway, seriously, Gurkhas are amazing. If you're not into military history, look them up. They're amazing and great inspiration for Space Marines. If you are into military history and you don't know who Gurkhas are, look them up, because obviously you're not really into military history unless you know what Gurkha is. Little bent knives, utterly amazing. But yeah, you can really rack up a lot of honour in just 20 years. So there's no reason why someone couldn't be a captain in 20 years, or someone might take 200 or 300 years to do it if you're a Space Marine. your plasma pistol, your cape. Capes are merely ornate to mark them as senior commanders. They seem a bit an odd thing to be wearing, but then again, a lot of the stuff in the 41st century is odd. We've got, again, these lovely little battle sheets, which frankly look amazing. Then we've got tools of war. Whether based aboard, that's actually, I'll read in a funny voice. Whether based aboard a colossal starship or within the looming walls of a fortress monastery, all Space Marine chapters maintain a vast armory stacked high with weapons and armor ready to be unleashed upon the Emperor's foes. If you're old enough to remember that scene from Matrix, it's that scene from Matrix. It goes on to describe what the armories look like, what you're likely to find in an armory. But basically, Space Marines will have any weapons they need for any situation they need, and a lot of weird weapons. It tends to be the characters that get the most access to this armory, but any unit of even standard Space Marines or even Scouts set for a specific job will be armed in a specific way. Got some lovely pictures there. From the top, we've got a space sword, a power axe, a thunder hammer, and a power fist. They're all pretty awesome. Traditionally, the power fists are the most powerful, just because they're kind of the most brutal, and they're one of the most symbolic or iconic weapons of the Space Marines. Then we've got force weapons, which is that, and those are the weapons carried by psychers. They're built in such a way as to carry psychic be able to carry psychic power. And then you have the ubiquitous combat knife, which is just a lever, a stabby weapon, a tool, or a sword. You got the little serrated blade back there. I don't know if you can see it. But in all fairness, the serrated blades, they're not meant to be used against an enemy, although you could in theory. The combat knife isn't just a knife, it's a tool. It's got a big flat blade, making it useful for digging trenches and foxholes if you need to. The serrated edge of the back can cut wood for fuel or things like that. The fact that it's got such a heavy blade allows it to be used as an axe. And the reason it has the sculpt or scalped tip there not only brings it to quite a sharp point, with the flat edge at the back strengthening that point rather than having a very thin point, it also is a skinning tool, allowing Space Marines to skin animals for their fur, or to skin animals that they're going to eat if they have to eat. So yeah, as with your standard real world combat knife, it isn't actually a combat weapon. It's an all-round tool that is very useful in combat, because it is, at the end of the day, a stabby stick. Now, even a small one of these would be unwieldy. That's why a lot of the time when you get them in the military, they're either lightened or they are what they are. They're a backup tool rather than a main weapon. You'll often see military specialists armed with daggers rather than a combat blade, because a dagger is actually designed for combat, where a combat blade is designed for a number of things and can be used for combat. But in the hands of a Space Marine with their augmented strength, this is going to be basically a finesse weapon. The weight, the extra stuff doesn't matter, because the Space Marines are so augmented that they can just have that as a combat knife, which is an interesting side note. Realistically, if you're a base trooper, having that as a close combat weapon is a thing that you can do, because it's your backup. If you're a specialist trooper or a specialist soldier in the real world, you see they often have daggers and better blades and weapons better suited to close combat than just the combat knife, which is as much a tool as it is anything else. Although even then, you will find some soldiers and some troops that are in combat specialists using them because they've just got used to them over the years and they're comfortable with. But there you go. That's a little aside into combat knives. Next, we've got a little story bit: the War for Ramessus Megaria. The moon, known as Megaria, orbits the gas giant Galanthia, the largest planet in the Ramessus system. For generations, this desolate and dusty rock has been the host to the majority of Ramessus' heavy industry. Since the Necron invasion, however, the moon's refineries have fallen silent. That's pretty cool. Some of the things I do like about 40k, they try and give actual reasons why you're doing things. Because if nothing else, it then actually allows you to tie in some of the missions rather than just going for an entire murder, death, kill battle. Don't get me wrong, I like Total Annihilation as a victory point, but the game wasn't designed to work on purely Total Annihilation. And if that's all you're playing, it can get boring. Just to jump back, we'll say the game's not designed to work purely on Total Annihilation. Some forces work better in Total Annihilation, some forces work better in hit and run, some forces work better in grabbing tactical points and holding them. And if you play Total Annihilation, you will lend yourselves to certain armies. The Tyranids come to mind, or at least they used to, as a really good Total Annihilation army. Some of the Nurgle Space Marines, where they're just very tough, also lend themselves well to Total Annihilation armies because, as you'd expect them to, Death Guard is literally there to grind the enemy into dust. Then you get some of the guys like the Dark Eldar, who are really fast, really good, can take tactical points very quickly, but if you force them into a Total Annihilation battle, they're at a big disadvantage. If you only play Total Annihilation, if you only play battles with Total Annihilation as your final victory point, you are going to find that it's not cheating because it is within the rules, but certain armies will have such an advantage that it's not worth playing for other armies against those armies. And vice versa, if you never do Total Annihilation, some armies are just bred for that, are just made for that. And if you never do Total Annihilation, those armies are never going to really shine. That's why you want to play different things. It's also one of the reasons why tournaments can be either a lot of fun or very frustrating, because depending on how they built the tournament can depend on how your army performs, and depending on who you go against can depend on how your army performs. With certain armies being so out there that they can take the limelight because no one's prepared for their particular style of play. At one point, I don't know if this is still true of the tournament scene, but at one point Imperial Guard were really good because they had some fundamental differences in the way they played. You can find plenty of videos about that, but fundamentally they were a massive horde army, but they only grouped their guys in groups of 10, so you couldn't do what you did with giant orc hordes, where you could attack a group of 50 orcs and kill like 30 of them, thus doing the thing. You could attack a group of 50 Imperial Guard with one of your more devastating units, but you'd still only ever kill 10 at most, because it didn't carry across for the longest time. Anyway, back to this. So I've got some more stuff on the back. Important locations on Megaria: the Bard Spaceport, the Blast Mine Theatre, the Administration Complex, and the Necron Repair Facility. It does seem a bit weird for the Imperium to build a Necron Repair Facility, but there you go. But we can see here that it's setting us up for campaign play, so you'll be able to play a lot of linked games. Those parts are worth keeping as well. Sometimes you'll find if the edition changes, the campaign battles change, but a lot of the time changes between editions aren't too intense, so you can often either mildly adapt or just keep a lot of the missions from these magazines and just play them with the next ed and still have a fantastic time. We've got Heart of the Storm, which is another bit of bump here. From their lair deep, from their lair deep within the warp, the bloodthirsty Crimson Slaughter. Tourette's. The bloodthirsty Crimson Slaughter have emerged to strike at the Imperium. In their path stand the Fulminators, a chapter of Primaris Space Marines. Beneath the spires of the Shrine World's Timia pride, loyalists and traitors clash in the midst of a violent storm. I'm not sure how the storm affects things if they're beneath, but yeah, there you go. Some more bump. Also reading this, it's really good in terms of just getting yourself kind of going there and happy there. They got a bit of an advert here, which is not really an advert, but you're built in. You've got clipper safety. You've got glue safety, because this is one of the first guys that one of the first guys that hasn't been glued on, that is glue on, that isn't insertion. And you've got mold line remover, which advertises the mold line remover. If you've got a safety knife, the mold line remover, you can use the back of the safety knife to remove mold lines. The advantage of the mold line remover is where it's just blunt. You can put your finger anywhere on it without cutting, whereas if you're using a knife backwards, you've got the blade where your thumb might want to go. So honestly, if your thumbnails are a little long, which mine tend to be because I keep forgetting to cut them, you can use your thumbs just to scrape the mold lines, the thumbnail just to scrape the mold lines off just as easily. But it's got some advice on removing mold lines, which is actually quite cool. And then you've got the build instructions, as you'd expect. It's single pose, but you do have the ability to customize it by removing or replacing several of the bits. So the arms can be replaced. The head can just be replaced outright. The shoulder pad can just be replaced outright, as can the backpack. And it doesn't take much work to, for example, Space Marine this guy up. Then we've got the painting bit. It advises you on how to paint it. It's advising you to paint just onto plastic. I always base coat first, but that's just my personal preference. I say it's advising you to paint over plastic. It actually isn't. What it's advising you to do is use Macragge glue as a base paint, but then use Macragge glue as the layer paint over the top as well. If you view it via the guidelines, if you will, or through the prism of how GW are now looking at it. It used to be base coat, layer coat. It used to be prime the model, then put a base coat on, then put various layers for shadow on that. Now it's just put the base coat on, but do that a couple of times, and that's perfectly valid. That's an absolutely okay way to do things. It isn't actually that different from the way I was taught to do things. It's just a matter that I always fall back on different terminology, and I tend to use a different colour base coat because I often find it better shows up the gaps you've missed. But again, that's just purely personal preference. You see that starts to look nice and blue. You've got the lead belcher last issue, so you've got a nice silver to paint them. Some people paint power sword silver, some make them different, kind of glowing with power. But again, that's down to you. Then we've got rallying the troops. That's a basic description of, it's a bump bit for the next little mission. With his troops scattered and fully engaged with the Necron foe, the captain in command of the Ultramarine forces seeks to rally the Space Marines and ensure the Necron foe is defeated. Ooh. There you go. You've got your basic bits there. You've got your stats there. the basic rules there, and you've got armor penetration for the captain there, so he's going through that, and a brief explanation of how to use armor penetration, and how that works, and the basis of the mission. A lot of these missions are a lot of fun. If you have the time to play them, do so. Space Marine turn 1, Necron turn 1, and then it tends to be just lava, rinse, repeat. You know, for the secondary turns, although there are a few differences because you're in combat, so it explains the difference there. So you've got a captain fighting these two guys, and as always, the dice rolls will really determine who wins. Tactics is very important, but at this low level, you've got one Space Marine. Charge is basically your tactic. Inside back page has the standard. It's not pushing a subscription, but it is pushing the sort of the 3 steps that they recommend. Guidance, which is going to your 40k, going to your Warhammer store. Warhammer store is what it says there, but friendly local gaming shop is just as good, if not better in many cases. Not that I don't love my local Warhammer store. Mine's managed very well by a very competent guy. I know the guy that runs the Basingstoke store, and he's really good as well. Especially in the south of England, Southsea and Basingstoke, fantastic stores run by fantastic guys. Go visit them. But yeah, there's nothing better than going into these stores and actually speaking to experienced gamers, unless they're dicks, in which case go find one that isn't. And then we've got the community. There's a fantastic online community, loads of stuff for Warhammer 40k, and loads of other stuff. The Facebook groups tend to be good. You will hear a lot of bitching, because it's fun to bitch, and a lot of people like to bitch. You know, GW did this, GW did that. But at the end of the day, it's purely voluntary. You don't have to stay with GW. There are plenty of other great companies out there. The reason all these guys who are bitching and say, I'll never buy GW again, are still on GW pages and still buying GW stuff is it's actually really good. And it's a lot of fun to play with. Any game company you buy stuff off, you'll end up going, why have they done that? Why have they done this? GW are no different. They just tend to get more of the flack because they're the biggest, and the bigger games companies do more things, and the more things you do, the more likely you are to do something that somebody doesn't like. That being said, as I say, if you end up actually legitimately not wanting to play with GW stuff, there are so many other people out there. One of my favourites is Corvus Belli, another is Weird Miniatures. If you like military games, my brain just went into Army Painter and it didn't mean Army Painter. Warlord are fantastic and provide a lot of models for their money. Yeah, there's so many things out there that complaining about GW and still playing GW if you genuinely don't like them is pointless. Go find other companies. They're out there. They're amazing. They're brilliant. I love GW, but I love other companies as well. I play a lot of different systems. Enjoy it is the main thing. Yeah. Then you've got exploration. Warhammer 40k Imperium is just beginning. Hundreds of models and more games to wait. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And an advertisement, yeah. As advertisements go, it's not the worst. And it's advertising mostly something you've already got and telling you how to get the best out of something you've already got. Yes, they want you to go in their shops because they want you to buy more, but that's what all adverts do. All right, next week we have Primaris Aggressors, one of my favourite units just because they're so big and violent. They come with 2 weapons loadouts as standard. These will probably be the push fit ones, meaning they come with 1 weapons loadout, which is the Flamers. I like the Flamers anyway. I think one of my unit has the Bolt Storm weapons, and the other 3 units I already have are Flamers. The reason I have 3 units is because I bought units because they were awesome. I bought the Imperium pack because they're awesome, and I also bought Conquest because it was awesome. And all of those came with Aggressors, and frankly, I don't care. I want more Aggressors. Aggressors are the bomb. And after that, paints. As I said, it looked like we were breaking open some of the paint kits. This is well, this is perfectly understandable from GW, as they want to get rid of a lot of their paints. The paints are kind of £2.50 to £3 each, meaning that for 3 of them you're getting 2, 4, 6, £7.50. If you count the magazine as something you want to buy, which, why wouldn't you? It's actually quite a nifty magazine. Most magazines of this thickness are going to be a couple of quid. They're not like, it's not a £5 magazine, but certainly it's worth £2 or £3 by itself. Or rather, you'd probably buy one of these for £2 or £3 by itself. I think it's worth a couple of quid. With that, you're still saving money. With some of the paints being, you know, like the metallic paints are a bit more expensive, it may actually take it to the £8 or £9 mark. I'd have to double check the costs. But that's pretty cool as well. You're definitely saving money on the Primaris, and even if you're just counting what you'll get, even if you're just counting what you're getting and excluding the magazine, which some people do, you're not losing much money, and they're good paints. Corax White and Retributor Armor are paints that you're going to get a lot of use out of. Mechanica Standard Grey is itself a fairly useful paint, so I can't imagine that's going to sit on your shelf and be unused either. So, all pretty good. I've just got to pause it slightly while I go and check who won last week's competition. And I'm back through the magic of the pause button on my phone. And the winner of this week's is Darren Hackney. Just a quick word for the winner of previous weeks. I've been really busy with a lot of stuff at home, so I actually haven't got out to posting your stuff yet. That's why it hasn't arrived. I will be posting it in the next few days. It will be coming out to you guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Remember to like, subscribe, share with all your friends, beat them until they like and subscribe, and so on and so forth. I'll see you guys next week.